Bill, good morning. How are you?
Doing well, guys. How are you?
Good. Big one tomorrow for LSU with Gabe Relaford. This is a guy that I know within your organization has bumped himself up to the top defensive lineman in the state of Louisiana during this cycle, and LSU is in dire need of that position. You anticipate some good news here, right?
Yeah, we do. And Gabe Relaford is exactly what LSU needed in this cycle if he does indeed pick the Tigers. And, defensive line, defensive line, defensive line, that's all we hear about with this cycle, as far as what LSU needed to address. And that's why you keep playing out the recruiting game, the long way. You keep recruiting no matter what. You keep trying to make inroads, and you hope that things pan out. And it looks like now with Gabe Relaford, things are going to pan out with LSU, which is great news because he's somebody that brings some versatility to the front as well. He can play on the edge, kind of a strong side defensive end, but also play a defensive tackle spot as well once he bulks up a little bit more. He's got, great frame. He's got that production the past 2 years in Louisiana. And so I do think LSU is going to win out, and I think he'd be a massive, massive pickup for LSU.
Take me through his process, Billy, because I know that it was a big deal for Texas A&M to recruit him and offer him early. LSU was a dream school at one point for him, and really kind of had to make up a ton of ground here. How was LSU able to do that?
Yeah, Frank Wilson, Sherman Wilson, Matt House, J.R. Belton, Brian Kelly. The list kind of goes on in terms of who has really taken the ball and run with it as far as recruiting him. And, even with the uncertainty around the future of, the defensive line coach, we haven't heard definitively from Brian Kelly on that. That's why it took a whole staff approach. And I spoke with Gabe Sunday night right after he decommitted, and we had a story on it. And he just said once Coach Elijah Robinson left, that was something where he realized he shouldn't have maybe been putting a lot of his eggs in that basket in terms of his commitment to Texas A&M. And so that said a lot. That's a piece of why I think LSU is sitting so pretty here, is because they took such a whole staff approach with him. They really pushed for him to, consider them. And he made a couple visits this fall, and then they got his family down for the official visit last weekend. And, it was a difficult process for them because they are people that would have rather have, made a commitment and been able to stick with it and things like that. That's just who they are. And that's who a lot of people want to be as well. But, changes happened in College Station, and that, creaked the door open even more for LSU. And by that point, they had been still recruiting him and showing him how big of a priority he was. And it looks like it's going to pay off. So that was kind of the process that they went through lately, early on for LSU. It was just a matter of, all right, he is kind of a guy that could play strong side defensive end, could bulk up and be a D tackle. Where does he kind of fit for LSU? But ultimately, you've got to find players that can play, and I think that's something that Gabe Relaford brings to the table. Is he could produce. He's got a lot of projectable traits that are very high quality, and so I think that was ultimately why LSU moved on him this summer. And from there, it was just a matter of keep chipping away and keep trying to get in there and build a relationship and all of those things.
Billy, are you able to get from the player standpoint what the message is from LSU side on the defensive unit, staff, coordinator on what it'll be, maybe with a commitment of Keelan Moses or talking to guys like Gabe Relaford of what they're hearing?
Yeah, I think those are conversations that they're having, and they wouldn't share them with us. I mean, I think with Gabe realized with Elijah Robinson that, okay, changes do happen. I need to pick a place that I feel best at. And so I think if he does indeed pick LSU on Friday, like we're expecting, that's going to reflect that decision more so than, all right, who is going to be coaching me? Because who knows? There could be another change. There could be a change wherever he would have gone at his position coach. And so that's something that we're not finding out from them. But I think LSU is sharing some things with them and giving them a general feel for the direction of it and what they're going to do. And, if they do in fact know what they're going to do, maybe they tell them, maybe they don't. I don't know. But however they're pitching it and putting it out there to them, they're doing a pretty good job of it because they look, they've got a lot of momentum right now on the recruiting trail.
Bill, either way it shakes out, if LSU's able to land Gabe Relaford tomorrow, they get one of two of the top defensive tackles in the state. In my opinion, that's a win at this point. Is there an opportunity for them to get back in on Dominic McKinley because of the scenario that played out for Relaford? I mean, a lot of the stories that we've heard from both of these guys, that Elijah Robinson was so big to the commitment, to the status of staying committed to Texas A&M and then ultimately going there. Now that he's out, is McKinley back up for grabs?
Yeah, I think with obviously he went to Syracuse. I think both these guys don't want to go all the way up there. So that's part of it in terms of why they're not considering Syracuse. But I think with Dom, they're a family that didn't really like the recruiting process that much, in my opinion. Just from talking from them a little bit and hearing, just kind of how their approach was. They weren't a family that was blowing up phone lines and talking with coaches all the time. And Dom's pretty low key. He's focused on academics. He's a really good football player too. But just kind of a different approach they had to take with him. So I think with him, it's always been a quiet recruitment. It's always been a recruitment that once he made the decision, he was pretty firm in. I am interested to see if he does make it to College Station in the final decision and does sign and go there. I think the door is creaked open a little bit for schools like Texas, schools like LSU. They're trying to get in there and say, hey, come take a visit, come spend more time here and give us another look. He hasn't done that at any places. He is supposed to go to A&M this weekend, I guess, for an official visit after his state championship game is over with. He'd go over there Saturday, but LSU does have time to maybe squeeze in an official visit the last weekend before signing period. So we are watching that. That is something that they'd like for them to do, and we'll see if they do it. But they made their decision a little bit more kind of there was the Elijah Robinson piece was huge. Mason Smith was big, but they also looked at the whole totality of it. And you look at College Station, you look at Baton Rouge. Those are the two closest schools he really could have gone to. That are kind of true-ish college towns in a way. Austin was always kind of considered this big city that he didn't really like too much from just talking with sources. So it is kind of this balance here down the stretch of what do they do without any clear, relationship in terms of their defensive line coach. But they did make their decisions just a little bit more kind of with the academic piece of A&M inside in mind too.
Bill, a couple in the transfer portal that I know you gained some relationships with while they were being recruited. Walter Nolan jumped in the transfer portal and Jordan Gilbert in the transfer portal, both out of A&M. LSU was in on them during recruitment when they were coming out of high school. Where do you think they land here now that they're in the portal?
Yeah, Jordan Gilbert is one that I think LSU's got a really good shot to end up with, and Shea Dixon already has his on 3 RPM pick in on our side of things, and I'm not far behind him on that. And I think he would really help the safety room. He's a U-High kid who has been around the program a lot, and has relationships with guys on the team and things like that. He's also played a lot of football in the SEC. He was hurt this year. He got hurt early in the year, and so that kind of hampered him a little bit. But last year he was really, really good and trending in a great direction and was off to a good start this year. But he'd really help, again, kind of solidify that safety room. Not all transfers are going to be, just incredible impacts. But as long as you're getting really good, solid transfers, that's kind of the goal. So you can build depth, build talent, and help your overall team. And I think Jordan Gilbert would do that. Walter Nolan, I think his picture is a little less clear. I'm intrigued to see where he goes. He was a highly, highly touted player coming out of high school. He'd obviously help in a big way on the defensive line front for LSU. I think his picture is a little less clear, but I think all the big boys are going to be involved recruiting him and trying to bring him in for visits and get him to come their way.
You mentioned Gilbert's a U High kid. Last week, University High prospect Keelan Moses pledged to LSU, shutting down his class of 2025, which looks like it's going to be a great class. What does LSU get in Moses, and what was that recruitment like?
Yeah, they get a great kid. I mean, he's one of our favorites to cover, to be around and talk with and all those things. He's really, really bright and well-spoken. And obviously his brother Dylan went through the process and did that whole song and dance and obviously ended up at Alabama. This time around, Moses is staying at LSU to play for the home state. He is going to be a big leader in this class. That is for sure. He made no bones about it when talking with reporters after. He wants LSU to get the number one class. They do have a shot to get the number one class. If they can get a guy like Bryce Underwood in, keep a guy like DeCorian Moore, get Harlem Berry here later this month, do all of those things, they're going to be in position to do that. And Keelan is a good two-way prospect. He's going to play linebacker at LSU, but does play both ways for U High a little bit. So he's got some good size to him. He's got a whole nother year to continue to get his body stronger and do all of those things. But yeah, they're getting a key piece to the future of the linebacker room for LSU.
How much was it was interesting to hear him talking about it. He did a great media session after the commitment where he really kind of explained everything, but he really resourced Dylan on this. And it sounded like he was a major player as far as somebody that he leaned on, and referencing his older brother Dylan Moses, who went through the process as one of the top players in the country, and ultimately decided to go to Alabama. Had a fantastic career, but just injuries caught up with him during his college run. What did you make of his process of what he kind of learned from watching his brother?
Yeah, I think. Maybe some LSU fans that really hate on Dylan Moses a little bit should be giving him a little tap on the shoulder for kind of helping a little bit on this one. I think, Dylan may be realizing, how it could have been a little different post-career if he had ended up at LSU and don't know if that would have changed any future in terms of or past in terms of injuries and things like that. But, Keelan saying that certainly kind of cleared up how big of a role that Dylan played in his process. And I talked with Keelan last spring, and he was saying that, Dylan is a good resource for him, and he can always kind of, share what he's feeling and get some feedback from him. And so, I mean, I think it's great that, they have that relationship and obviously a little house divided now officially. But, Keelan Moses is somebody that I think did a really nice job of taking in all the information, taking visits. He took a lot of them. He was able to get to a lot of places. He got to Florida, he got to Texas, he got to Alabama. He took a bunch of visits and then felt good enough to make an early commitment. And high-profile Louisiana guys like him don't always do that in terms of the early commitment. So for LSU to get him, for LSU to have Teron Francis, Brett Bordelon, J.D. LaFleur in terms of the Louisiana guys shut down early, that's big. They should be getting Harlem Berry, the number one running back in the country, here in about a week or so. That is really important and kind of out of the ordinary when it comes to high-profile Louisiana guys. So, Dylan probably shared with them, hey, if you're feeling it, shut it down, go for it, and that's what he did.
And then, Bill, a month from yesterday, we will hear from the number one prospect in the class of 2025 in Bryce Underwood. He's a quarterback out of Michigan. And it seems like, that it feels like it's all LSU. I mean, at this point, where do you see this thing finishing at?
Yeah, I agree with you. If there is some sort of trick he's pulling, and it's not a trick. He hasn't really named a leader, but he has visited LSU like 5 times over the last year, 4 or 5 times over the last year, made a game this fall, didn't get to Michigan until the Ohio State Michigan game and had to leave to prepare for a state title. And then he's not planning any visits until his decision. So I mean, this would be not an all-timer, but kind of an all-timer if he goes elsewhere, because just all the signs, all the buzz, all the things behind the scenes we hear are pointing to LSU. And gosh, it's kind of like a surreal feeling when you cover a program and they have a chance to get the number one prospect, and he's a quarterback too. It's just a game-changing, generational type of talent in terms of what he's viewed as. So if LSU gets this thing across the finish line, it's going to be game on for this 2025 class, and the future just continues to get brighter in that respect for LSU too.
Harlan Berry announced it on December 18th. Bryce Underwood announcing on January 6th. All signs point towards LSU there. Bill, today the state championships get going in the Superdome. Any high-level prospects that you are paying attention to? I know Calvary Baptist is playing there tomorrow with Simon, the other running back in that class with Berry of 25. But a lot of big-time football on display this weekend.
Yeah, Acadiana, Dominic McKinley playing Catholic High in the state championship, and that'll be a good one. You know, Dom McKinley is in there, and his brother Darius for Acadiana, but also Blaine Bradford, the Bradford brothers, Jacob, playing there for Catholic High. They've got some talent, and then you look to the big dogs for LSU that are going to be playing in there, and Juwan Johnson, the record-setting quarterback for LCA, is looking to cap his career with a win over STM and State Thomas More. You mentioned James Simon and how, I mean, they've been so impressive, but going up against now an undefeated St. Charles Catholic team, they'll look to get a state title. And then Zachary Rustin. So you'll have Trades Green and that Zachary team looking to beat Ahmad Bro and a lot of the talent that's over there at Ruston with the state championship as well. There's a lot of talent, as always, in the Dome.
Bill, I've just been paying attention to some highlights on social media the last couple of weekends in high school action, and the games have been fantastic. But locally right here, Catholic High has had some pretty big wins, and both of them have seemingly come down to the end. And I see Brooks Wright making plays for Catholic High, who I know is a UL baseball commitment. But when I watch him play, I mean, he's like 6'2". I mean, he made a play at safety last weekend for Catholic High where he had a big interception. He had the game-winning catch a couple of weekends ago. You know anything about Wright? I know he's a baseball guy, but, I mean, is he a possible dual sport guy when he gets to Lafayette?
Yeah, I don't know where his head's at on dual sport, but I do know Arkansas State offered him a football scholarship and like what they saw. I don't know if he's given any thought late to kind of flipping directions and going the football route. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the thing that impresses me the most is that size. I mean, we talk about that. It's not hard to find. It's hard to find athletes that can move at that size. At a Division I level, you know, some guys are kind of considered, you know, raw or projects or this or that. Well, when you're making plays on both sides of the ball like he has, that's where it's impressive. And so, I don't know if he's given the thought to playing, you know, multiple sports in college, but he is being a big factor down the stretch for Catholic High, no doubt.
Bill, have a great weekend. Great information. We'll be watching Relaford tomorrow. Should be good news for the home team, and we'll catch up next week.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. There he is, Billy Embody from 1-3. Make sure you're paying attention. $1 memberships right now